Garrick has shown Rom and Lita 153 different wedding dresses from Tellarite Modern to Ryzian Traditional, and they've hated them all. Jake is now an official correspondent for the Starfleet News Service, and Odo has been thinking about asking Major Kira out to dinner, but he's decided against it. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 26, Call to Arms, written by legends Ira Steven Behr and Robert Hewitt Wolfe, directed by Alan Croker. This was June 16, 1997. Alan Craker, thank you. It's a Nog episode. We are joined by Melissa Longo, and we're also joined by awesome legendary writer Robert Hewitt Wolfe.
Woo.
Yeah. All right.
Good intro, man.
I cannot contain myself,
but I'll take it.
All day I've been thinking about this. When we were watching the episode, I don't know how you guys felt, but I was just like, oh my God, my mind is just exploding. And we're going to get to talk to Robert about it. And we have like 4 hours worth of questions for you. So everybody at home, put the kids to bed, put the parents to bed, put the spouses and partners to bed, the baby porcupines. It's party time. Let's have some fun. Cool. I'm done.
That was good hype, though.
I know.
He's good at that. He's
I'm
really
excited.
good.
Yeah.
I'm out of my mind.
I want to be my hype man when I enter the octagon or whatever.
Yeah. No, but he's actually right, because this is a season finale episode, and there is a whole lot of stuff crammed into it. Which just makes me say, I'm sure you guys were having fun when you were preparing for how much stuff you wanted to cram into this episode.
Well, I mean, the truth is the A story is kind of like a slow burn, you know, in that it's like this ratcheting tension. The bad guys are coming, the bad guys are coming, the bad guys are coming, but they're not there yet, you know? And so we get to do a lot of personal stories, like all the stuff that Ryan just raised. It's interesting, like rewatching it. I actually forgot how much we managed to cram in, how much romance and weddings and like Jake becoming a reporter and having this conflict with his dad about it, and like Garrick and Zial. There's a lot of life in the show that isn't about the A story, or that is more vivid because the A story is coming. In other words, like it's like the cherry blossom thing, right? It's like, Rom is concerned about where he's going to put Lita's clothes.
Yeah.
It's the most ridiculous thing ever, because spoiler alert, like they're not going to have quarters in a minute, you know? there's much bigger problems coming. But the idea of the episode is kind of like, it's about the cherry blossoms, which are beautiful because they only exist for a few weeks and then they're gone. And the idea here is that these relationships are like more precious because we know that something's coming that could potentially upend all of them. And therefore, this whole idea of people trying to grab these last little bits of life as this impending doom comes at them is basically the idea of the episode.
Hey, real quick too, something that also made me really excited for, because this was kind of the last episode you were in the writer's room for, Robert, but you left us with so many great things. I was super excited for the new character, the new Starfleet character that was introduced, that is just amazing, right? Did you wait?
Oh. Yeah.
Did I get that?
It's so blurry. Wounded Starfleet officer, dude.
There it is.
who has like a second of screen time. You can barely see me, right?
Yes.
So that's me.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah, me being dragged off the station as a wounded Starfleet officer. You can't really. I've got burn scars all down the side of my face. I'm like limping and I'm being helped off. It's in the background of the scene between Dax and Worf.
I should have lightened that up.
Evacuated. Yeah. I mean, the truth is I spent 2 hours in makeup, and I think you have to like search for a frame I'm actually in, which is pretty funny. I mean, I feel like I got the experience of what it's really like to be an extra. It was like, you're there all day long. You're in the shots over and over and over again. Then you watch the final cut and it's like, I'm barely in it. It's not like I got featured the way like Ira and everybody got featured in the real finale, right? In What You Leave Behind. Like they get like they're in tuxedos and they get real shots, right?
Right.
I get dragged off the station. You can barely see me. It's awesome. They wanted me to be a Vulcan, and that would have been another hour in makeup. And I was like, I'm not gonna be an effing Vulcan if I have to spend that much time in the makeup chair. I don't have time for that.
I'd like to see you signing headshots with that photo right there. At the
yeah. Like, what would people pay for a headshot of me as a wounded Starfleet officer? Like $2.50. $2.50.
Was that like a parting gift, or was that something where you were like, I've always wanted to be on the set, or was it like Ira saying,
no,
you know what we're gonna do?
It was Ira, Ron, and Renee, I think, mostly, who just said like, you should do this, right? And so they set it up and had me do it, and it was fun. And they also did this really cool thing, which I can't find anymore. I think it's around somewhere. But when I left, there was in the episode, there's like not an ops scene, a briefing room scene, right? Conference room. I can't remember what we called it.
Yeah.
Where everyone is around the table, and they say like, this is Robert's last episode, and they all held up parentheticals under their faces that said sad. Sweet. It was really, really sweet. It was the whole cast, and it was just like, I wish I don't know where it is. Somebody has that. I have it somewhere on tape, but it's probably like on 3/4 inch tape, or 1 inch tape. It's like, 30-year-old VCR at this point. So who knows if it even plays anymore, 25 years old. But that was just super sweet. It was really nice of them to do. Yeah.
What were those last days like for you, knowing that you were leaving and kind of moving on?
I mean, it was very, very bittersweet. The decision to leave was very, very difficult. And honestly, I still second guess it sometimes, even today. At the time, I'd been on the show for 5 years, from almost the very beginning, like episode 6 or whatever. And I was just burned out, man. I mean, we wrote 26 episodes a year. We took 1 week off for Christmas, 2 or 3 weeks off for summer. Like, I'd done my honeymoon as a hiatus trip. I was just tired, and also like I had other things going on. I had sold a feature, I had sold a pilot, and it felt like that's what I needed to be focused on. And I just was worried that if I stayed, I wouldn't really have anything. I'd be an empty tank. In retrospect, like I said, maybe I should have stayed, who knows? But at the time, it felt like the right thing. And so I asked Ira if it was okay, and we talked about it a couple times, and he was fine with it. I mean, I think he was not super happy about it, but he understood where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to hold me to a contract. The one thing that, the thing I had to do was agree not to go on to another show that year.
Really?
Because I technically had a year left on my contract. And so he was like, I'll let you go, but you can't, Paramount will be really, really upset if you jump onto another show. So like, go do your feature and your pilot, but as long as you don't do another show next year, it's all good. And so, yeah, that's what I did. Like I said, to this day, I don't know whether that was the right thing to do. It felt right at the time. It felt like that's what I needed to do for myself. The other issue was that like I'd come in as the staff writer, and I got promoted every year. So I was a producer that year, but everybody above me had been promoted too, right? There was no one under me. I was still the lowest ranking guy on staff. I had
so it doesn't feel like a promotion.
Well, look, it felt like a promotion. Don't get me wrong. But the point was, like, I knew that I was never really going to be anyone. I was never really going to get the experience of like running my own show or supervising other writers on Deep Space Nine. That was just never going to happen, because even if I'd stayed till the end and gotten promoted all the way up to like supervising producer or co-EP, right, in season 7, I would have been a co-EP who'd never supervised another writer in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of felt like, I needed to try to do that. I needed to try to write on my own, because I was writing mostly with Ira. So I needed to write more things on my own. And like I said, I was just like, do I have anything left to say about these characters? you know, and I wasn't sure I did. I probably did, but I wasn't sure I did. So that's why I left.
Yeah. I bet you did.
I think you did, because this episode itself is proof of it, because you really touch on all the characters and the relationships that they have. Like, we see moments with Dax and Kira. We see all these relations, even Rom and Nog, you know, hey, Dad, good speech. You know, there were really good moments in this episode where you get to see the personal relationships that I think DS9 is so good at building.
I think that that's what we always were aiming for at the end of the day, right? Even in these big action episodes, like what we were always looking for was good scenes between our wonderful characters played by our terrific cast, right? Because we knew that look, that's money. That was money in the bank for us. Every time we could do any scenes like that, a scene between you and Avery, a scene between Aaron and Avery, those scenes were always terrific, you know. And there's a great Nog Sisko scene in this episode. It's just like
you took the words right out of my mouth, Cadet. That was the scene that I really
the end. Oh my God, like, you know, he gets the big determinative speech in a way, and then like Sisko's like, yes, like that. And so, and look what a generous actor Avery is too, right? There are 100% actors I've worked with subsequently who would have been like, I gotta say that kid can't say that, I get to say it, you know. But Avery knew like how powerful that would be. And also, like, he's just a generous actor. He's just the kind of guy who's like not afraid to let the other characters shine in the scene with him. I mean, part of that I think comes from the confidence of being Avery Brooks and knowing that, like, doesn't matter. You know,
his legacy is good.
He's still Avery Brooks. You know, he's still Sisko, and like at the end of the day, he's going to get the last shot and the last word, and everything sort of revolves around his character ultimately. But like, he just has a tremendous amount of confidence as an actor, and that I think is a lovely thing that let you and Aaron and other people who were newer actors really both learn your craft and shine. What do you think? How did you experience that? Because that's how I'm seeing it from the outside.
Oh, absolutely. Avery really taught me while we were working at the same time. So it was like on the job training. You know, whether it was to make sure that my face got more camera, you know, make sure, you know, find the camera. He would say that all the time, find the camera, make sure you can feel the lens on you. Those were the kind of little, you know, tidbits that he just made me better at. And if I didn't even find the camera, he would grab my face and like tilt me towards
and like, look, like, I've worked with some wonderful, wonderful actors, you know, I don't know if I've ever, well, I've had some terrific experiences, but like, again, the cast of Deep Space Nine was spectacular, but like, it is, what you just said is such a rarity in a number one on the call sheet. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of people who are like, I don't give a crap if that kid can find his camera. I don't care if he gets a good shot, because if he doesn't get a good shot, I get the shot. If he doesn't deliver the moment, I get to deliver the moment. And like, there are just actors for whom that's the game, you know. They're like, I'm going to win the scene, you know. And Avery, maybe because of the jazz background, like, understood that you're not trying to win the scene. You're trying to play together in a really interesting and fun and surprising way. And I think that ethos really informed the entire series. It just is how the show, look, everyone takes their cue from the start of the show, whether that's acknowledged or not, or even people are thinking about it or not. However that number one on the call sheet behaves is like, that's the captain of the team, and everybody can kind of take their cues from that. And I think it infused the entire acting experience on set. It was spectacular.
You know, real quick, that's a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about actors, and kind of saying, well, if the other actor in the scene isn't doing something great, then I'm going to get that scene. And a lot of times, I mean, the bottom line is, in the editing bay, the editors and the directors are looking for performance. They're going to take the take you do 15 takes. They're going to do the take where has the best performance. If they've got two people talking and one person's got just this they're not even talking, but they've got this amazing look or this amazing performance. That's sometimes we wonder, like, why is it showing the person's face who's not talking? It's because they are killing it for the screen. And that's something I hadn't thought before, where you're right, there could be that competitiveness where they're like, if this person's not giving a good, performance, then that means the editor or the director is going to find me, in the final cut.
Look, there are actors who will sabotage the other people in the scene on purpose.
Yes.
They will make this, you can speak to that, I'm sure, but
the fact of the matter is, when the camera is faced at the actor who's on camera and the person is off camera, the off-camera actor, in many times, and the person who's very selfish, may not deliver a good performance so that you can react to it. And those are the kind of actors that don't want you to have any shine or camera time. And the ones that are selfless will give you the performance, either way, whether it's on them or not.
I worked with a leading man who wouldn't even show up for that. They would do all his coverage. And by the way, it's absolutely not Avery. It's absolutely not Johnny Lee Miller, who was there all the time, right? But they would just split. When it was time for coverage, they would leave, and their body double would do the over the shoulders, and the script supervisor would read the lines, And that is awful. It's awful, right?
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing because it just undermines the performance of everybody else. And like I said, that same actor would have taken that Nog speech. He would have just been like, I'm the captain, give me the speech, And so one of the things that always strikes me watching these episodes, and I think I've talked about it before, is just how generous and how much teamwork there was among the main cast and the supporting too, right? But everybody just gamers, like coming correct and working to make each other great and working to make themselves great and working to make the best show possible, because they understood that the rising tide raises all boats, or they understood that this is jazz that we're playing together, or whatever the vibe was. Because like I said, as you guys know, as I've said before, we weren't on set all that much, but you can see it in the work, right? You can see it when you watch it. It's just apparent. And so it was lovely to watch the episode and just like see all that. It's something that I appreciated all over again,
Yeah. I was going to say, you can definitely see it in the work. You can see everybody's commitment to each other and to the story, and because it's the only way to make it believable, to have everyone involved exist in this world, in this environment. And if somebody, says, okay, I've done my coverage, I'm out, that just drops the ball on the whole world and the work that you're putting out there. And it's unfortunate when people do that, because it sabotages not just the other actors' work, but the entire work of everyone else who is putting so much into creating these stories.
Yeah, and like one of the things that teamwork let happen is Lita gets to shine, Nog gets to shine, Ram gets to shine, Dukat, Wayoon, they get to shine. Like Damar is barely a character in this, but eventually he gets his time too, right? And everybody is part of the family. Everybody is able to have the best foot forward. They all showed tremendous faith in the scripts too. There's stuff when you're watching it, like I'm understanding like the faith it takes for Max to play some of those ROM scenes as goofy as he plays them in an episode like this, and know that it will work. Like when he's talking about when they're doing the mine scene and he's talking about the closets and like all that stuff, or when he comes back and he's like, I'm a spy for the Federation, like don't tell anyone, brother, but I'm a spy. And Quark's line like, oh God, Starfleet is even more desperate than I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it allows those lovely moments, which are such an important part of Deep Space Nine. They're probably the things I'm most proud of, is like all these surprise. Like, look, I think the action sequences in this are really good. The Starfleet battles are fun. The tension is good. I think all that stuff works. But like the things I'm most proud of when I watch this episode again are like Worf and Dax and here's something to come back for. It's the baseball. It's those like little character moments that I just like look at and I'm like, man, we were doing really good work. You know,
really good work. As
You know-
opposed to the battle stuff is all great, well and great, but you have to have something to fight for. Otherwise, the battles are meaningless. So this is why it's so important that all of this other stuff be touched upon, because otherwise it's just a battle and then who cares?
Yeah. I mean, look, there are characters I wish we could have seen in the episode even too, right? We did have to make some choices, like Keiko's not in it, you know, and I think that and Molly aren't.
But she gets a NAM,
Yeah.
a non-appearance mention.
Yes, but
No.
but you know what I mean. It's like that would have been nice to see, you know. But we did what we did our very best. It's a very chock full episode, so it was just one of those things where it's like we had to make decisions ultimately. I think there was a scene, and I think we had to cut it for time for her. Like at some point, we were writing a scene for her. It was very early on, and I think it just like, God, I just don't have time. You know, it sucks.
Well, you know what I was most impressed with was just the overall writing of this episode. I mean, there were so many moments where I was just like, wow, that's excellent writing. And a lot of times, you know, the episodes, they really stand out for their dialogue. And this episode really stood out even more so for the mapping out that you must have done in order for every character to have a very believable motivation and very believable storyline. Like it feels like one of the hardest things in screenwriting is, you know, that this character needs to be here or needs to go here. This is the end point. But how do you create something in universe that makes sense to where people go, oh yeah, that works. That makes sense. Like Jake Sisko staying on the station. Okay, well now he's a writer. That works. Major Kira had this brilliant moment where she says, on behalf of the Bajoran, you know, militia or whatever, and she says, welcome to Deep Space Nine. She also says, as a representative for the Bajoran militia, I have to protest this, you know, Captain Sisko or whatever. She has these moments where that, to me, felt the most real out of almost anything. It felt completely accurate and totally real. And sometimes you chance upon those things, and sometimes you guys are just beating yourselves up for 6 weeks trying to figure out, how do I get this to work?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 6 weeks; it was more like 6 days, because that's just the amount of time.
Long days, man.
But yeah, like that was a big part of breaking this episode, was finding those moments for everyone. One of the things I want to mention though is like a non-scripted moment, which I can't even remember which scene it is. I think it's in the scene where she says, now that that's done with. But there's a moment where Nana just has this expression on her face where she has this like, I can't even describe her expression. It's just a moment, a silent moment where she just has this amazing reaction. I can't remember what scene it's in, but it just like stood out.
Was it the moment when he announces that they're evacuating the station?
I think it might be, yeah.
Because I was like, oh,
she has a like look on her face, like, okay, this is happening, and like I'm gonna have to deal with this crap, and like here we go, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's both like unhappy but also strong. It's just those you can't script. Those moments you know the actors find and you highlight when you find them in dailies, and it's just beautiful. Like, so for all the planning, like there's still wonderful unexpected moments all the way through the thing that are just delivered by the cast and the crew. You know, there's like the way things are shot. You know, I think it's a really well shot episode. I think Craker did a really nice job directing it. I think the mood of the piece works really, really well. And then, like, you know, those space battles are pretty damn good, you know, especially for the time. I was just noticing when I was rewatching it, maybe it's because I was rewatching it in HD, you know, but like the flames on the ships, those are real fire. That's real fire that they composited in. So, you know, like they were setting stuff on fire they were setting stuff in fire on some parking lot or some street on Paramount lot. They were literally just like setting all these fires and filming them right against black, probably, to get those flame elements that are on the Cardassian and Dominion ships as they're in the battle. Like that's not how they do it now. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, it's all fake. But back then, the fires were real. So like, I just was remembering, like, God, these guys used to just go out there and blow stuff up all day long and film it because they needed like explosions and fire, and it was like setting off pyrotechnics and like all this stuff that they used to do to get the elements that they then composited in, and it's both kind of like, oh wow, that's cool, but it also gives it like a feeling of reality that I think is a little different from all the CG stuff in a weird way.
Totally.
Like your eye knows those flames are real, you know.
We've got to take
now where they can make anything.
We're going to take a quick break, real fast. We're going to come right back on that. I don't know how we're going to be able to talk about all this, but we're going to try to, because this is so much good stuff. Thanks again for joining us, Robert. Everybody at home, stay tuned. We'll be right back in like a second and a half on the seventh rule. Hello, everybody. We are continuing on with one of the greatest episodes ever, with one of the greatest writers ever, Jake Sisko, and also the greatest real life writer ever, Robert Hewitt Wolfe.
Now that was a joke, Ryan. That was a good one.
That was good, yeah.
Real quick, let's knock out the trivioids. Garrick has shown Rom and Lita 153 different wedding dresses. The Fifth Dominion convoy heads to Cardassia in the last 5 weeks. Chief O'Brien wishes they would just attack and get it over with. Jake is now an official correspondent for the Starfleet News Service. By the way, it was another really smart bit of writing when Jake said he was going to be safe because they wouldn't want to upset the emissary by harming his son. Really intricate writing there, really smart. I thought Quark orders 10,000 rapages of Yamok sauce, which shows that he knows what's up. Captain Sisko likes his Ractigino at 60 degrees Celsius, which Nog brought him. Romulan signed a non-aggression pact with the Dominion. Odo has been thinking about asking Major Kira out to dinner, but he's decided against it. The war with the Klingons have left the Cardassians somewhat jittery, which was a funny line there. And lastly, Rom and Lita have their first fight.
Oh, that was a great line too. It was like, hey, we had our first fight. We are married.
Yeah, it's fun.
Beautiful.
Fun bit. And really well, again, Max delivered it. He killed it. So yeah, that's awesome.
He does kill. And there's also another moment which I really love. I like the way that you have Weyoun kind of you make him check Dukat when Dukat's saying, yeah, we're gonna go for Bajor next. And I'm thinking, wow, they're gonna go, they're coming for everybody, but you switch it and you're like, no, Bajor signed a deal with us. We're gonna honor that deal. And that threw me off guard because I'm like, these guys are the bad guys. Bad guys do bad things. But it was like another loop that I thought was well written that made it believable to me because he was kind of checking him like, no, you don't jump until I say jump.
Well, I mean, in a way, we're being true to the character of the Dominion when we first came up with them. You know, the whole idea of the Dominion was that they were like the Roman Empire, right? They used the carrot and the stick, and that the Vorta represented the carrot and the Jemadar were the stick. But if you do sign a non-aggression pact with them, if you do align with them, if you do join the Dominion, you're fine. You're gonna everything's good, right? That's the irony of the. I'm sorry, there's some noise in the background from some workers, so I'll just keep muting when I can. But the problem, like, that's the irony of the Dominion in a weird way, which is that if you're in the Dominion, it's good. It's not bad, man. Like, they take care of you. They want a few things, but honestly, it's way better to be in the Dominion than be in the Romulan Star Empire, the Klingon Empire. You know, they're not like. They don't take any pleasure in oppressing you. You know, they're not interested in the skullduggery for skullduggery's sake, like the Romulans. They don't think any day is a good day to die. And so that's part of the deal. Like the Dominion is perfectly happy if you just surrender. You know, they don't need to eat you, and so they honor their treaties. You know, and that makes them in some ways scarier. We thought in that like. You kind of understand that they understand both hard and soft power, and that makes them more sophisticated and more dangerous than other enemies. Because there's the temptation to just give up, and we wanted that to be like, you know, That's part of it, right? So like there's a version of what Wayun and Sisko are saying that's true. But of course it's not true, and they both know it, you know.
Not only do they make them make their enemy just kind of, or their opponent just want to give up, but they also, for the purposes of storytelling, you now have put the Bajorans in a place where if they have now the onus of having to not, you know, if they're going to break the agreement or not, right? So
right, and so they're now a really difficult line to tread, right? Odo has a difficult line to tread going forward. Jake has this plan, but man, is Jake's plan good? Even he's not totally sold on his own plan, which is kind of fun, right? And that was probably what we were trying to set up for season 6, was put all these people in this really sort of difficult positions that they'd have to navigate, you know. That was
going to lead me to the obvious question. I'm sorry, which is this obviously to me, and that's why I want you to clarify. Seems like this episode and the one following were written together, like the first episode of the 6th season. Like you would kind of have to know where you're going to go. So my question is, when you're walking away, do you already have pretty much an idea what season 1 episodes, you know, season 6 episode 1 is?
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We never had a clue.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
We would write ourselves to these cliffhangers or to these cool moments, you know? That was the thing. They were never really true cliffhangers, right? We never wrote ourselves an honest to God cliffhanger in the entire time the show went on, right? What we created was what we like to call like sort of pregnant moments. The understanding that we put an egg on the table and we said like, this egg next season will hatch. We don't say when, we don't promise you anything, just like, here it is. See you next season. And so that was sort of like this, in some ways, this was the biggest, we put the most eggs on the table ever in this episode, you know? And then I walked away and it wasn't my problem anymore. But we did that every year. We did that every year. We'd finish the season and then we would sit down and we'd start talking about next season. We very rarely combine those into one continuous conversation. If we did true cliffhangers, like in Purgatory Shadow, right? If we'd done like in Purgatory Shadow as a season finale, we would have understood what in Inferno's Light, by Inferno's Light would have been. You know what I mean? If we'd done the Search, you know, part 1 and 2 as a season finale and a season opener, instead of as the first 2 episodes of a season, then we would have had to figure that out as one sort of thing. And that's how we did those. But that's why we only did our 2-parters in a weird way, you know, in isolation, or well, eventually they were doing 10-parters, right? But we didn't ever do a real cliffhanger because we didn't owe a real payoff, you know, and we could start from scratch and do what we thought was best for the season.
Wow.
That's news to me. Does that allow for spontaneity in the coming season?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. In other words, then the season premiere can be what serves the season best, not what served last season best. Because if you do a cliffhanger in a weird way, like the first episode of the next season is really the end of the first season. It ties up the end of the story, right? And we didn't really feel like that was what we wanted to do. So we wouldn't really do those kind of strict cliffhangers. We would, and like there were times that absolutely we had to, like we totally changed our idea about what we were going to do. Because like, for example, when we wrote Jem'Hadar, we did not think we would go immediately into finding the founders and, you know, realizing Odo was a founder. We thought we would delay that for an entire season. When we finished season 2, we thought that what started season 3 would be like the finale of season 3. And then we were talking to Michael and he's like, nah, it's too good. Odo being a founder is too good. I don't want to hold it. Let's just do it right away. And so
induce labor.
Okay. Yeah, induce labor. That egg hatches real fast, you know? And if we had done a true cliffhanger, we wouldn't have been able to do it that way. You know, we would have owed something first. And so we didn't ever really want to feel like we owed a story, just that we owed payoffs for setups. That's what we were sort of going for, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Robert, watching this again this morning, there are a few episodes in this 7-season series that really feel like some of the best hours in, American science fiction history. Personally, there are a few of those. Way of the Warrior has so many iconic moments and lines and scenes. This one also has that feel to where I'm watching it. I'm like, I almost feel like I'm watching, history in, actual science fiction history of basically a perfect television episode, a perfect hour of science fiction writing and acting, of course, like when Mark Alimo with Gul Dukat says, well, by all means, fire, whatever. I mean, that I had to watch that 5 times because it was so beautifully done. But also, especially the writing. And I wondered, like, at that moment or in the subsequent decades since then, have you ever looked back and just with like pride, knowing that many people must feel this way, including possibly yourself, that you've written, kind of the gold standard a lot of times, including in this episode?
It's not the perfect episode, and the evidence of it is right behind you, which is my biggest regret from the episode, which is those stupid things on their shoulders. What things? They look terrible. That was a huge mistake. We shouldn't have gone for that. It was distracting and stupid. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, I think every once in a while in a career, you get the opportunity to write an episode like this, and when the stars align, you deliver it really, really well. And obviously, like writing with Ira, that became more likely because, I mean, Ira's an amazing writer. So anything that's in this look is a team, it's a team sport in the writer's room too, right? So lots of credit to Renee and Ron and Hans too. But yeah, I mean, looking back, watching it again, I was like, oh man, this is like, because I hadn't seen it in a few years at least. And I was just like, wow, this is a really good episode of television, and I don't take personal ownership of that. Like I take that as a credit to everyone from top to bottom, like cast, crew, director, us, editors, music. There's some really cool music in the episode too,
I wanted to point that out. Unbelievable
visual effects. Yeah. I honestly forgot to look to see which of our 2 composers did this episode. But it's really, really good. The composing is really, really beautiful.
Especially when they are evacuating and Garrick wants to come on. At that moment, that's where I put in all capital letters in my notes. I was like, the music is mind-blowingly good right now. And like better than it needed to be. Like I want to look up who did it, but I'm checking
Jay
right
Chataway.
now.
It was Jay Chataway. Because
Jay. So like in that sequence, suddenly there's all this beautiful French horn music. You know what I mean? I think it's that sequence. It was one of those sequences where there's all this tension and suddenly the music starts up and then suddenly it goes into this beautiful like French horn stuff. And it's like very, very emotional and like has all this resonance. And a lot of shows, they wouldn't do that. It would just be the drums and the strings and it'd be like driving and kind of staccato and like, oh, danger, 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 danger. But then this like sentiment comes in with the music, And it's just, I was just struck. I was just like, man, that's good work. Wow. Full orchestra, by the way, not synthesizers, Jay conducting 100 people on some soundstage at Paramount to make that music. Right. And they don't do that very much. They don't do that very much anymore either, man. It's like real flames. They don't do real musicians either. Anyway, so just yes, I would acknowledge that this is probably one of the best episodes of the series. It's probably in the top 10. It's probably in the top 50, in my opinion, episodes of science fiction that have been on TV. Maybe top 100, whatever. It's up there. But like personally, like I feel like only I feel like part of it, not like me and Ira did this. You know what I mean? I just feel like 150 hardworking people did this, 150 professionals at the top of their game, maybe more, probably more, right? More like 250 maybe. And that's special to me. That in some ways makes it more special. you know, because it is such a coming together of so many amazing people doing such amazing work, you know.
Yeah, there was a moment when I was watching this episode, and it actually just came across my mind. Like, I'm saying to myself, this is Star Trek. Like, this is what Star Trek's about.
Yes.
Like, it was the barometer or something just rang in my head. Like, wow, this is Star Trek. I'm watching authentic, top shelf Star Trek. And I mean, it had everything from the captain giving a speech at the end when, you know, he's telling everybody we're about to evacuate. It had those moments. It had those smaller moments where everybody's having these little conversations. One of which I liked was Garrick talking about himself. Imagine a guy who did this.
What a story.
What a story.
And then he leaves, which is even better. Like, he's like, nope, can't stay here. Garrick out.
Yeah.
Smoke bomb.
Yeah. And so I just was really taken aback by it, and I just love the way you have all of the characters that were not main characters that you brought in on, you know, these side characters that have such integral parts, these reoccurring characters that are like basically the linchpin to why it matters, you know, from Lita to Garrick to everybody who's in there, that you just make it feel like this sense of community, and I really like the way that was executed.
I mean, that was Michael's premise in the very beginning, in a weird way, was that this was like a Western town, you know, and Sisko was the new commander of the cavalry that was supposed to take care of this place, you know, and so the sense of community was something that, like, even from the pilot, you can see it, right? It's the whole like leaning on Quark to make him arresting Nog, and then leaning on Quark and like dealing with Kira. It's the station has a life of its own that's beyond Sisko and beyond the Starfleet people, and it's beyond their control. It's not beyond their influence, but it's beyond their control, and ultimately, but it's their responsibility, right? They are the ones who are supposed to be here, and we're breaking it in this. We're breaking the contract, right? The whole episode is basically about the Federation leaving, and these people are now going to be on their own under this horrible occupation, potentially. And so I think that, again, the reason we leaned into the community elements is because that's what's at risk. And what is lost, at least temporarily, is Sisko at the head of that table. You know, the cavalry left, and now the village is occupied, and now they got to deal with that. You know, I think it was a really big part of what we were kind of aiming for.
Another moment that I like, sorry to interrupt you, but it was the moment where Sisko's on the bridge and he just gets off the phone with the Federation, and they basically, he has some information that he can't tell them, right? They're like, so what are their plans? He's like, I can't tell you what their plans are. And Kira says something to the effect of, I can't see what would be more important than coming over here and, you know, backing us up. And Worf gives one of the great lines, which is, you know, it does. What difference does that make? We have our orders, or something like, what are our orders?
Yeah.
And I love that line. It was like, hey, look, we can't sit here and wonder about what, you know, things that we can't control. What do we have to do right now?
That's so Worf.
That was another.
It's ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do or die, right? It's Kipling, I think.
Right.
It's like, that's Worf's attitude in a nutshell. And the great thing about Kira is, like, you know, no matter what you do, no matter how far Kira goes, at the end of the day, like, she was a freedom fighter. She made her own fate. You know, she didn't work in like this kind of like big, mysterious organization that's giving orders. You know, she was just her in Shakar blowing stuff up, right?
Yeah.
So she still has that in her, right? At the end of the day, like, as much as she's a major and she's wearing a uniform, she's not really a soldier. But Worf is the soldieriest soldier, you know, the most soldier, you know?
Yes.
Him and Sisko, right? Like Sisko too, but Worf sort of embodies that like stoic, like, I have an order. It may not make sense to me, but it's not my job to have the orders make sense. It's my job to carry out the orders, you know? There was I was talking earlier before we started that my dad was a career Army officer, and he was actually Green Beret in Vietnam. And the Green Beret have a saying when things are looking bleak and they get terrible orders, you know? And that saying is another chance to excel. My dad used to say that all the time. Like, and that's kind of where Worf is coming from. Like, it's like the Federation is not going to give us any more ships. They're not going to tell us why. They're leaving us on our own. It's another chance to excel. Like, that's what Worf is going to do, you know? And so in that, I was a little bit channeling my dad, you know, that was kind of a little homage to how my father would have acted in that situation. So,
you know, it also leads into what you did towards the end of the episode was when Captain Sisko makes the announcement that a coalition of Klingon and Federation ships knocked out the shipyards, Dominion shipyards or whatever exactly it was. And that was another little moment that was, you know, just almost a side mention, but it's so important when writing a really good episode. You gave them a little win. You gave them a little win, a little hope, a little like not all is lost. Like we still have a plan in motion. We still have some hope. We're still working towards something.
Right. This was all Starfleet's plan all along, and Sisko's plan by extension was to sacrifice the station, you know, for the greater good and for the greater plan. And to not fight some crazy battle that they weren't ready for, but to fight the battles they did want to fight. And that, you know, the truth is, as writers, we just didn't want any help to show up. You know, we wanted the station to be on its own because obviously that's maximum drama. But to do that, you have to think like in the real world, why would they leave this station like this? Why would they just leave them out to dry, right? And the truth is, there are situations like that in the real world where you just go like, I can lose that station, you know. And if I let that station get captured in the meantime, I can go do like 2 other things that are going to be really impactful. And then eventually when I want the station back, I'll take the station back. It's a
chess match.
It's a chess match. And it's Sun Tzu too. Like one of the things about Sun Tzu is never take the fortified positions, you know? That don't matter. Like go around them, go do your other objectives. Like they're stuck there, you know, a fort, a fort can't move. And so, you know, there's a strategy to like real warfare of like avoiding those kind of things, avoiding sieges like that, you know? And so Starfleet sort of decides that that's a resource that they don't need or that's not worth the blood. And that sucks for Kira. It sucks for Odo. It sucks for Quark, for Rom, you know, it sucks for Jake because he decides to stay behind. But it's cool and it felt real. But ultimately, we were just justifying leaving our people on their own. You know, so a lot of times it comes from a story imperative, and then you have to sort of like think through like what are the real world implications if this were really happening in the real world? Why would it be happening? And then you go from there.
There's a line in this episode where Sisko says, "These are the times that try men's souls," and he says, "Someone once said," but I had to look it up. It's a Thomas Paine quote, and whose idea was to throw that in there? Because I did like the quote and actually had to research it.
Wow, man, I can't remember anymore, to be honest. It's been too long.
Okay.
We would do little things like that. I mean, there's other kind of like, I mean, Rom almost gives the Casablanca speech, the Hill of Beans speech.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about how the love of 2 people is just part of a tapestry of greater events. It's kind of you know, what we want is a hill of beans, right? It doesn't amount to a hill of beans. So we were always throwing stuff like that in or looking for cool moments to do stuff like that. And I have no idea whether it was me or Ira or one of the guys suggested it in the break or whatever, or suggested it as a note. I don't remember anymore. That's why like at some point it just becomes a giant team sport, right? Because especially like 24 years from ahead, right? 24 years ago this was?
Yeah,
24.
Yeah, 24 years ago. So like, I mean, hopefully there are people watching this who are younger than that. It's just, you know, it all becomes like a thing we all did together, you know, and it's really hard to assign credit or blame.
Yeah.
I don't know whose fault those terrible things on the shoulders are. That might have been my idea, you know, and the crew executed it the best they could, and it wasn't so great.
Another moment I really enjoyed in this was when Rom and Quark were having their brother moment, and Rom says, I stayed behind to protect you, brother. And I love Quark's response was like, yeah, like I said, you're an idiot.
But then he gives
and
him
then
a
the
kiss on the
head.
That kiss is so good.
Brilliant.
The kiss is so
Brilliant.
good.
Yeah.
And I do not remember if we scripted that. I bet we
Yeah.
didn't.
That was my question.
I'll bet you money that was Armin. I bet that was Armin. And it's brilliant. It's so great.
So brilliant.
Especially because he's been giving him nothing but crap this entire episode about his wedding. He says it's going to last 2 months. He's a sarcastic jerk at the wedding. He sort of gives him the pat on the shoulders, but it's just like you can tell it like he's not feeling it. Then he gives him that kiss, and it's just like he loves his brother. It's so beautiful. It tells you everything you need to know about these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Star Trek always has heart.
I said, I'm sure that was Armin. You know, God,
we'll have to ask him. So we've got about 1 minute left. So real quick. By the way, the Thomas Paine thing. If Dr. Anne-Marie Segal is in the free for all, she can tell us about the Thomas Paine quote, because she said it was written in the 1700s and at a place that is now a piano bar that she frequents in Manhattan. So, and it's named after, Crisis, whatever. Anyway, so she actually, right. So she's actually mentioned that was written there. So Robert, this is kind of extremely bittersweet for me and for us, I think, because it's kind of the end of an era where, you wrote 5 seasons, you've joined us, several times, and we've really, really, really loved having you, and I just want to thank you for, giving us the time of day and, and really giving us so much good stuff, really great insights. You laughed at our dumb jokes. You gave us plenty of things to laugh about and think about. I feel like I'm a smarter person for having listened to your insights. And it's just been like a really great ride. And I hope you can come back and join us. You've got like an episode you wrote like in the seventh season or something like that.
Yeah. No, look, I love hanging out with you guys and talking. Obviously, I've said this before. It's also like, I feel like I owe the show and the fans so much, it's the basis of my entire career, and the fact that people still watch it and still love it. I still cash the checks, so look, it feels like coming back home, in a way. Again, it's like, Cirroc and I were like teammates in this giant team, and he played offense and I played defense, so we were never in the locker room at the same time. We're talking to each other about plays, but nonetheless, we went through something together, and I think I value that tremendously, and I think what you guys do is great. I love what you guys do. I love that you bring in Malissa. I obviously I miss Aaron dearly. So it's been my honor to be able to hang out with you guys, and I'd love to do Field of Fire when we get there. And if there's any time you want to, grab me for some sort of off episode topic, I'm happy to do it, because I just feel like, it's family, and not just you guys, but also, and the crew and the cast and all that, when I get to interact with them here, but also, the fans, if no one watched it, then it would just be a tree falling in the forest, right? So thanks to everybody who watches it and is still watching it, and thanks to the people who are watching it for the first time, thanks for appreciating what we did. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. You killed it, man, and I wish you did stay all the way, because we'd have more to talk about. And you're so insightful, and your wisdom, your experience. It's just it's great to see you grow on the and with the show.
I grew up on this show too, the same way you did, man.
Yeah,
I learned my trade on this show the same way you did.
I was learning from Avery, and you were learning from Ira and Michael Pillar.
And Michael Pillar,
and
like Pete Fields, and Hans too. Ron and Renee and I almost sort of came up together, so we were more peers. But But boy, we were so lucky, you and me, to have such mentors. Now, 20 something years later, looking back, I really appreciate how lucky we were.
You really appreciate it. Yeah.
Like,
when you work with people and you realize not everybody's so generous, not everybody's so, and you only learn that after you move on and you start to work with other people. Then you realize how good you had it.
100%. 100%. I mean, look, like Ira let my name be first in the credits sometimes when we were ampersand. Every other episode after a while, we switched back and forth. Like,
I wondered about that. Yeah.
He didn't have to do that. That was just like saying, like, as writers, we're equal contributors. It's not like, but he didn't have to do that. That's incredibly generous. And that is not done very often. Forget about the fact that the head writer is writing with the lowest ranking writer on staff and doing, 30 something episodes together, which is also not done, and how generous he was with that. But to give me that kind of credit and spotlight, it's the same thing we were talking about with Avery. He wanted me to find the camera, and he put my freaking face in the right place if I didn't do it myself.
Right. Yeah, exactly that.
Beautiful person.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them, man.
Amen.
Thank you, guys.
Well,
live long and prosper.
Thank you very much. Wish we could do this forever. But yeah, thank you so much. Everybody at home, stick around. We got the free for all next. Don't forget to follow Robert Hewitt Wolfe on Twitter. He is one of the best follows on Twitter. Instagram, but no, I'm just kidding. I don't know if you're on Instagram.
I'll never post on Instagram.
Okay,
I don't take a lot of pictures.
Anyway, but TikTok, check them out. Thank you so much, Robert. Everybody stick around. We'll be right back on the 7th Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule. This is the free-for-all. We've got Cirroc, Lofton, and Malissa Longo dominating in the paint. The basketball analogy. Eve's like, I hate these guys. We've got Eve England out in Wales. We've got Grandpa One out in space. Love it. TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy. Okay. Something we forgot to mention, and by we, I mean me. I forgot to mention earlier in our recording of this episode that there was, beyond just meeting, Robert Hewitt Wolfe's new character that he portrayed and that we never saw again, we also saw that Worf is not the only Klingon in Starfleet. There is another Klingon in Starfleet that I didn't know about. And should we tease it for the end of the free-for-all, or should we just say it right now? Does anybody know about the Klingon?
Right,
there is a Klingon in Starfleet that I saw in this episode. And not just that, it is a Discovery Klingon. It is a Star Trek Discovery Klingon.
Was it during this speech?
Well, I guess we're about to find out, aren't we? Okay, here we go. Can you see it?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
That's a Star Trek like Discovery. Right?
That's a Discovery Klingon?
I mean...
Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like a Klingon from Discovery, but it's obviously a different alien.
I think it's just a Discovery Klingon that was doing like time warp stuff. And
time crystals.
Yes.
Whoa. That's deep.
That it all comes together. Now
the Klingons are the keepers of the time crystals, so they're the masters of time travel.
Now all the Trekkie fights and all the Facebook groups can come to an end. Anyway, well, let's talk about this episode. My goodness, so much good stuff.
I have to agree with Robert that the outfits that the Cardassian and the Border are wearing in this fight scene, it's kind of ridiculous, them having this... what does it look like? The Borg? Are they?
Yeah.
Where did they get this idea from?
Oh, but wasn't it established in an earlier episode when they were fighting over the Jem'Hadar ship?
Yeah, there's no windows or view screens. That's the only way you can see outside.
Right.
Okay.
Because they don't want they don't want the Jem'Hadar to be able to know what's going on around them. So I think it's a way of the management of the ship controlling everything. Yeah.
Only
I think they're really cool.
Oh, no windows.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too.
I love it.
too.
I was very hurt when Robert said, "Oh, that thing's ugly." I was like, "Oh, I thought it was cool." Like,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Star Trek.
I thought it was a distraction. Kind of was a distraction for me.
Definitely a distraction.
Yeah, I'm waiting for lasers to come out of it or something.
That would be cool.
I had no idea.
Double duty.
Something.
By the way, everybody at home, Eve's got a sore throat. So send your well wishes her way. Of course, by the time this thing airs, she'll probably be all better. But that's why she's a little raspy. She just got a sore throat. But she's being a trooper for us, like only people in Wales can be. So thank you for joining in, Eve. What do you guys think of this episode?
One of the best.
Yeah.
That's it, Tim. You messaged us saying, I can't wait for this episode. It's one of the best ever. And then you said it's one of the best. And I'm like, all right, here it comes. And you're like, that's it.
I actually took notes on this. One of the first things, I consider this the seminal episode for the 6th and 7th season. It really sets up Deep Space Nine perfectly. And, one of the first scenes that really I liked and kind of hit home is when O'Brien says, I wish they'd just attack and get it over. Because
have you ever been there before?
Yes. Then the other one was, I had to laugh. The Nog suck up to Sisko. Here's your coffee at exactly 60 degrees Celsius, just like you like it. I'm like, dude. And the other thing I remember is something in the military we call River City, which stands for reduced communications. So before an op or even after an op, a base will go into River City, and that's similar to what Odo did when he said, okay, we're cutting communication with the outside world. And so that was very realistic. And then I mentioned earlier, before we got taping, the ripoff of Casablanca at the end. I got a big kick out of that. It was a great episode, like I said, for setting up probably the two best seasons of this series, 6 and 7. So
yeah, there are a lot of points when I was watching this. I thought of you, Tim, because Robert was saying his dad was a Green Beret. And so that's probably where a lot of like the military information comes from. But it seems very realistic. But, people like me, we're just guessing. We're like, that looks realistic, but I have no idea if it really is.
In Deep Space Nine, the only really unrealistic thing is how many times Sisko disobeys a direct order.
Don't watch Discovery. Don't watch Discovery. You're going to be very upset.
But yeah, that's the only thing. It's like, okay, once or twice you get by with it, but then it's like, but then they also stuck them in an outpost in the middle of nowhere. So that's but yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, don't watch original series either. Didn't Kirk do that a lot too? He was very naughty. What do you think, TJ? Any thoughts on this awesome episode?
I think if you disobey orders, you just better win is the way it goes. Just better win. If you don't win, then you're in trouble for real.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite episodes. And, I agree with the sentiment. I was earlier trying to determine which season I like the best between 6 and 7. And I'm kind of leaning towards 6, but there's a lot of good stuff in season 7 too. But this is a great episode. I remember being shocked when it first aired, like, oh my God, they left. Like they kind of lost. And that was, before I knew the side of the story of what the rest of the fleet was doing and all of that. But my favorite scene is the one between Sisko and Wei Yun before, the battle even starts, when they're, kind of blowing each other up, fluffing each other. We're going to be, good buddies. And this was such a good talk. And in the very next second, he's like, they're going to attack. Like they're coming right now. Like I know it. We were just, both of us were just, trying to placate the other one, and neither one of us bought it. So let's get ready.
Yes, that was really good.
Favorite scenes ever. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that at all, Cirroc. That was really
no, we didn't. I didn't. I wrote it down in my notes, and TJ, I have to agree with you. That was one of the best scenes. And I wrote in my notes that Wei Yun isn't playing. Like, he's serious right now.
I think it was the first time we saw a stern Wei Yun. Like, let me be clear. You have to remove those mines. Sisko's like, no.
Yeah, but then when Sisko said no, he changed his tone. He changed his tone a bit.
Then he goes back into the charming Wei Yun guy. But in the beginning, he starts off serious. Like, I was like, whoa, this dude is not playing. And that was the most serious we had seen him up until this point. So he starts off, he's like, there's only two things that you can do, either disarm the mines or we'll take over and disarm them ourselves. And I believed him when he said that. That was truthful. And obviously Sisko believed him when he said that, because that's all he walked away with. All that other stuff about the children are starving. And did you know the children were starving?
Oh yeah, the jittery Cardassians. Oh, the jittery.
Yeah, because the Cardassians are. Don't tell. I know, jittery.
Yeah, so I did believe Wei Yun right off the top when he was like, "You have two choices." Like he gave him an ultimatum at that moment, and then he realized that taking that line wasn't the best way to go, because it would kind of give away his hand that he's about to do something about it. So he had to kind of do some politicking and try to smooth things over with Sisko, with the schmoozing and charm, but he made it clear that he was about to do something about it.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was a really good scene, and it shows how savvy Sisko is too. When he walked away, I'd forgotten about that till I watched it again. When he walked away, he's like, don't worry about it. Trust me, that was all bullshit. We know that this is what, we both know that we were bullshitting each other, and we need to get prepared here. It's really smart.
And, speaking to Tim's point about things being realistic and, about reducing your signals and, going into this, you call River City, I think you said. Mm-hmm. But, as we watch what the current events in the world today, and we see similar posturing happening, like in the South China Sea area over Taiwan and all of this stuff that's happening. So you're seeing almost the exact same thing play out, where people are increasing their forces in certain areas. You have these agreements and you have these treaties, and and you have all of this stuff, and the politics of conversation, where one guy says, hey, you can't do that, and the other guy says, we're going to do whatever we want to do. And so there's a whole bunch of this kind of actual stuff playing out today in the headlines. And so it just seems very realistic to me.
Whew. That cuts deep right there. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Do you have anything to add to that, Tim? You were nodding vehemently.
Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about, we talked about Bajor, or, the episode Bajor did the non-aggression pact.
Bajor.
A few years ago, there was an issue where Australia might side with do a non-aggression pact with China, because they didn't want to get stuck in the middle of a U.S. and China. And they're like, we're the little guy and you're the big bullies, and we're just going to stay out of it. And it was a shock when some people had proposed that, because of the relationship U.S. and Australia have had over the years. But like Australia pointed out, we're just a small little country compared to you guys. But that's very similar to what, when the Romulans signed the non-aggression. They're like, we're going to just stay out of this.
My name's Paul, and this is between y'all, is what they were saying.
And that's
my name is Bennett, and I ain't in it.
Okay. And I ain't in it. And when we were talking with Robert about this episode, one of the things that he made the equivalence of was the Dominion to the Roman Empire. And he said, like the Roman Empire would go and conquer, and as long as you bow down and kiss the ring, then you're protected. We won't invade you, won't slaughter you. We don't want to fight you. And the Dominion are kind of the same way. Like, just bow down, kiss the ring, admit that we're greater than you, and you don't have to worry about any aggression from us. So a lot of similarities there.
Which is why it makes that scene between Wei-Yun and Sisko even more interesting, is because Wei-Yun is probably used to having people say, bend, if I tell you to bend over, you're going to bend over.
Easy.
But Sisko is not.
Bend the knee. I don't think Wei-Yun, he's trying to have his Wei-Yun with him, huh?
Wei-Yun.
The first thing that popped up.
Brian. No agonizer for that one.
Don't encourage more. No encouragement.
Let's I think we've warmed up properly for Homer. Okay.
Thank you. I don't know how to follow that up, but I have a NAM and then a trivioid. So Marie Segal couldn't join us today. But
NAM
she mentioned to me another quote that was there, and it was a Sisko voiceover as the evacuation was taking place, and it was Thomas Paine.
Mm-hmm.
These are the times that try men's souls, and the tie-in with Anne-Marie is that Marie's Crisis, which is a place on 59 Grove Street she loves, its name is from Thomas Paine's work to do with the American Revolution, that helped to fuel the American Revolution. And it's also 59 Grove Street is where he lived when he was creating that as well. So that's the tie-in. Again, shout out to Anne-Marie.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm glad you remembered those details because I could not.
Oh, she told you too? And
she's told that that's her favorite. She was always talking about Marie's Crisis, and I still don't really understand the name or it's so complicated.
Yeah. So it was a Marie purchased that location, and she decided to go with her name and Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the very short version.
The quote comes from The American Crisis, which was published by Thomas Paine. So there goes the crisis similarity there.
Exactly right. Other than that, I just want to add one bit about this further development of the relationship between Kira and Odo. It's clear that Odo was like, we've got a lot going on. We've got to set this aside for now. I was going to ask you to dinner, but maybe we'll just focus on this, this coming up invasion and all this other stuff. And he's like, I feel better already. So I liked that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it too. I thought it was a good moment.
Yeah.
Well,
and actually, just to piggyback on that really quick, Homer, not only was it a good moment, but it's a clever way to ask her out, right? It's like you're asking her out, but you're not.
Totally.
Yeah.
I thought that was a preemptive strike. It's like, I could ask you out for dinner, but just in case you might say no, I'm not going to ask you. And I've got this excuse of an oncoming war. And the war's over. If we survive, maybe we'll revisit this. So
it was a perfect.
He's like, unless we wanted me to.
It's like he wrote himself all the outs. He set himself up for the future, and he didn't. And he avoided getting turned down because he kind of turned himself down. It was the best way to set yourself up in the future, and I'm going to have to use that. I gotta use that. I gotta use that line. I would ask you out, but I know that things.
I would ask you out to dinner, but I'm actually busy tonight.
Something like that.
Bit more.
It's kind of like when people. It's kind of like when people say, nothing." I was just gonna say, and then they say the thing that they're saying they're not gonna say or whatever. And
that kind of like I don't mean to be rude, but.
Yeah, no offense.
I'm about to be rude.
Yeah.
Nothing personal, but I'm about to say something personal about you.
Right. I love the way Odo dealt with that. And there was also another moment that I thought where Odo and Garrick had a scene, and we were talking about being generous as actors, but I thought Odo was generous the way he was listening to Garrick kind of explain himself on the promenade. Odo was kind of seated with his head down like this, and it was just a way for him to. I felt like it was a way for him to say, "Okay, the stage is yours now, Mr. Robinson, and do your thing and do your Garrick thing." And I thought that was kind of a generous kind of acting moment for Renee to, say the floor is yours to Garrick.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it was like he was feeding him fat pitches. He was just kind of like feeding it to him, feeding him the lines.
Right.
And then he had that wonderful line. It's like, Odo said, "You'd shoot a man in the back," and he's like,
It's
"Yeah."
the safest way.
Duh.
What's your point?
Yeah. And he even goes on. He says the whole, everybody on DS9 is gonna regret that I didn't kill that guy. Like, it's not just me that regrets it, but all of y'all about to regret it in a second. Not a nice foreshadow. There's also another moment there where Garrick is in the Defiant, and he says, "Oh yes, I'm just here in case you need a tailor or something." It's like, yeah. We're in the middle of a war. I just might get my suit altered. And
War torn shirts. You got to sew them up.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how Sisko and Rom switched sons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, very good observation. Good knowledge.
Excellent knowledge.
Yeah, I hadn't caught that. That's great.
I hadn't thought of it like that, but yeah, they switch, and that's the other thing that makes it kind of interesting. Is the cliffhanger of this episode. It's like, well, half the people are gone, half the people are still on DS9. Even Quark kind of introduces himself. I think Kira comes up and says, "Yes, I'm the Bajoran ambassador to DS9. Welcome." And Quark says, "Yeah, and I am the, what does he say, Promenade Merchants Association."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, but
sounds like a union.
Yeah, but Sisko kind of put that title on him in the very first episode when he was trying to get knocked out of the break. Yeah. And he didn't embrace it then, but he's definitely embracing it now.
How very unquark-like. Yeah. To be like, I'm the representative of the union. What? Quark?
Yeah,
I wonder if he ever found his Yamok sauce, though.
Yeah.
Well, they dumped it, didn't they?
Yeah, they were supposed
to. Dumped it.
That's too bad.
And what is a Yamok?
Yeah, we didn't get that answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we ever? Does it say anywhere online?
I don't know, but Mike McMahon, we need to know where the Yamok is. You're good at finding that and telling us. So look for it on lower decks.
Yeah.
I thought it was a llama and a something else combined. I thought it was like a. Yeah. I mentioned it as some kind of camel-looking, llama-looking thing. Every time I think of it.
That's kind of funny.
What I envisioned.
Yeah, I almost pictured it to be like some kind of burly animal too.
Yeah.
I kind of hope it's a plant. Out of it.
It's a fern.
That would be the greatest twist.
What do you think, Homer?
It's a fern.
Yeah, I thought it was a vegetable type thing.
Ooh, this is getting heated.
Maybe it doesn't even have to be a particular plant or animal. It's like taco sauce or something. So Yamok is something else about the food.
I wonder
if
it's
a twist.
Like a sweet potato, like a Yamok.
And an okra.
Like a yucca.
It might be,
that's nice.
It might be a location. It might be Yamok sauce, like French
champagne.
sauce, or Italian dressing.
Yeah, like Rioja.
Like
from
champagne.
the Yamok district on Cardassia.
They really haven't cleared this up for us.
I just checked.
It's literally a guess.
I just checked, but who was it that mentioned Mike McMahon?
That was me.
Okay, dude, that is spot on. Mike McMahon should take this, as a mission for the third season and just be like, oh, we got 14 Yamoks coming in. And every Star Trek nerd will be like, what?
Yeah, that's good.
We're gonna like, look, you better show us.
I always thought it was more like an HP sort, like a brown like HP. So it didn't really have like, it wasn't, nobody really knows what's in it, but it's just a brand or a type of sauce that everyone knows what HP sauce is, but nobody knows what's actually in it.
Mystery sauce.
It's some
Is that
Kardashian.
the brown sauce they talk about? My friends talk about in England. Brown sauce.
It's Houses of Parliament sauce. It's basically like a combination of ketchup and barbecue sauce. Brown sauce. Yeah.
Wow.
You dip your chips in it.
This is crazy.
That's right.
So
it's for your
nobody
chips.
knows what Yamok sauce is. It could be anything. It could be a region. It could be a vegetable. It could be animal.
It could be a person. It was named after a person that created,
Could be.
it could be like
It's like Famous Amos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Chick-fil-A sauce.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got to tweet
universe
Robert
is the
Hewitt
limit.
Wolfe and be like, okay, just one more thing, Robert, in our
One
best
more
Columbus
thing.
impression, and say, what?
Just one more thing.
What's a Yamok?
Yeah.
What the heck is a Yamok? Please
And also
clarify.
ask,
Please.
we could ask Una McCall, she might know from her research.
We're gonna Twitter storm.
Yeah.
She does like Kardashians.
She does.
Right. Right. Okay. We'll see. We're gonna get to the bottom of something.
Awesome.
I don't know what. Could be the bottom of the barrel. Anyway, I guess that's about it for us today. But thank you so much, Homer, who's wearing an awesome Sci-Fi Sisters shirt, by the way, from Vegas 2021. Awesome. Tim Baum, out somewhere in space, Grandpa One. Eve England, for being such a trooper. Thank you so much for joining in. I can't tell what shirt that is, but it looks like it's just a chillin' shirt.
Defiant.
Oh, Defiant.
Defiant.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good shot.
I like that one.
And a bracelet.
From Walking Art, made by Malissa. And TJ, thanks so much for driving home at the speed of light to join in with us.
And getting there safely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'd feel horrible.
And by the way, Homer, way to go with making a Nam out of Anne Marie. I thought that was clever in itself.
Was that a Nam, Marie?
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Ryan, you're rubbing off on all of us.
Wow.
It happens. It's very fun.
It's contagious. Homer, I hope you don't get it.
Did we?
I am not. I'm quarantining just in case.
Okay. Oh, also real quick. Let me just do this real quick. Okay. Homer's quarantining.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't know you could move people.
He looks so lonely up there.
So Homer's quarantining. And the
you up
Nams
there?
of the day were Keiko, Molly, Kiriyoshi, and Ducat, a Nam for Ducat. And we had a Trekkian named Baduvian Tapestry when they were talking about the clothing that Lita would or would not be wearing for her wedding.
right.
Gosh. Yeah, the picture of
And
the
there was another one, Baduvian Tapestry, yeah.
Anyway, so I guess that's about it.
oh, and Cirroc guessed the IMDb score.
Oh, I did not guess that. Get away from me.
Everybody that's listening in has no idea what's
going
I
on.
would say this was a great episode. This is like an 8.7 to me.
Oh, yeah.
8.7.
We got
Okay.
it. We got you.
Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb
Yeah,
score.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing 8.788. It's like top.
Any other guesses for anybody that doesn't know?
Oh, I know, but something.
I already looked.
91.
7, 8.
15.
15.
15.
It's a 9.1.
Wow.
Big time. I want to know who didn't give it a 10 or a 9.
Jeez.
But that also
Yeah.
reminds me of this real quick.
Oh.
We got a nitpick.
It's time for the nitpick number one.
Here comes the tie.
It's been a long time. It's been a long road. Okay. When you have a beautiful man making his acting debut like Robert Hewitt Wolfe, you show his face.
There it is.
Eve agrees.
All right.
Wow.
All right. That's about it. Everybody at home, thank you so much for joining in. Cirroc, thank you so much for remembering what I had forgotten there.
Well,
people tune in for Jake
stuff,
Sisko,
but you know,
they tune in for Jake Sisko guess at the IMDb score, and Cirroc just saved the day again. So everybody, thank you so much for joining in. We'll see you again real soon, and always remember the 7th rule. Sorry, Homer. Homer's still way up there. See ya, Homer.
No problem.
Stuff at him.
That's fine.
Hey, Malissa saved the day too. She brought it up.
I was the one who brought it up.
Oh, it was
but yeah.
Malissa. I'm sorry. I'm glad we're still recording. Thank you, Malissa.
Yeah, give out the credit properly.
I'll just cut it out of the edit.